It is a quiet Tuesday night. Camille just turned 50, and she cannot sleep. She is staring at one number on her retirement screen, $250,000. $250,000, saved carefully one paycheck at a time for decades. And yet, at 50, all she feels is one nagging, unanswered question. Is $250,000 ahead, behind, or exactly right on track? She has no idea. And that not knowing is quietly eating at her peace of mind. She has done the responsible thing for 30 years, saved steadily, avoided crazy risks. Yet the finish line keeps feeling blurry, like a target she can never quite see. Tonight, we are going to make that blurry target sharp, specific, and reachable. Here is the strange truth. That number by itself cannot answer her question at all. $250,000 could be wildly ahead. It could also be dangerously behind. It depends on things the number on the screen never shows you. Most people compare their balance to a friend, a headline, or a scary online average. And almost every one of those comparisons is the wrong measuring stick. So tonight, we answer Camille's question properly, with real numbers, not vibes. Ahead, behind, or on track. By the end, you will know how to actually tell. And you will know exactly where your own number really stands. Let us begin. For years, she trusted that saving something, anything, was enough to be safe. Now at 50, safe is no longer a feeling. It is a math problem she wants solved. She is not looking for comfort. She is looking for the truth, whatever it turns out to be. And the truth, it turns out, is far more hopeful than the headlines led her to believe. First, understand why the raw number is such a slippery, misleading thing. $250,000 feels enormous. It is more than most people ever see at once. But retirement is not about how the number feels. It is about what the number does. A big pile that must last 30 years is a very different thing from a small one. So the same $250,000 can be plenty for one person and thin for another. What changes the answer is not the balance. It is the life the balance has to fund. The cottage version of Camille is comfortably on track with her $250,000. The mansion version of Camille would need 2 or 3 times as much to feel secure. Same woman, same savings, same age. Only the size of the life is different. This is exactly where benchmarks come in, and where they quietly go wrong. The week before, Camille had even walked into her bank to ask a teller directly. The teller was kind, but could only show her the balance, not whether it was enough. Because enough is never printed on a statement. It lives in your own future, not the bank's. You have seen the headlines, "Have this much saved by 50," or "You are doomed." Those headlines are built for clicks, not for your actual specific situation. A benchmark is a rough map. It is useful, but it is not a verdict on your life. Used well, benchmarks orient you. Used blindly, they either terrify you or lull you. Here's the good news hiding in all of this. Specific beats scary every time. A vague fear about the future can grow endlessly. A specific number has a definite edge. The moment Camille turns her worry into 3 numbers, the worry starts to shrink. Camille does not need a scary headline. She needs 3 honest, specific numbers. So let us keep this fair and keep it specific. Here is what the data actually shows. Think of the balance like the reading on a car's fuel gauge, useful but incomplete. A full tank means nothing until you know how far you still have to drive. $250,000 is a tank of fuel. The drive is the retirement it has to cover. Short drive and that tank is plenty. Long drive and you will need to fill up more. So before we judge Camille's tank, we have to ask how far she plans to go. That is the number the screen never shows. And it changes absolutely everything. Start with the most famous benchmark of all, the one from Fidelity. Fidelity suggests aiming for roughly 6 times your salary saved by age 50. 6 times your salary, not 6 times some stranger's salary. Yours, specifically. And that one word, yours, is where the whole question quietly turns. Because 6 times a $50,000 salary is $300,000. But 6 times a $75,000 salary is $450,000. Same age, same benchmark, and yet 2 completely different target numbers appear. The benchmark did not change. Only the salary underneath it quietly did. Meet Camille's coworker, Nicole, also 50, also sitting on $250,000. Identical balances, but Camille earns $42,000, Nicole earns $90,000. Run the numbers. For Camille, the benchmark is about $250,000. Camille is basically right on track. Her $250,000 matches her modest life almost exactly. But for Nicole, 6 times $90,000 is a target of $540,000. The very same $250,000 leaves Nicole roughly half of her benchmark. Nicole feels the sting of that gap, even though her balance matches Camille's exactly. But Nicole is not behind because she failed. She is behind because her life costs more. 2 women, 1 number, one is on track, one is quietly behind. And nothing about the $250,000 on their screens revealed that gap. Imagine if Camille had only compared her balance to Nicole's, number to number. She would have concluded they were in identical shape, and she would have been wrong. The number was the same. The truth underneath it was completely different. Here is what nobody tells you. The benchmark is not about the money. It is about the lifestyle. A higher salary usually means a bigger life. A bigger life costs more to replace. That is why the multiple scales with income. It is trying to protect your specific lifestyle. So the first honest number is not your balance. It is your balance divided by your salary. Camille's multiple is about 6. Nicole's is under 3. Now the picture gets honest. Same savings, different truths. That is the trap of comparing raw numbers. Keep this in mind. There is also a younger coworker, Derek, who loves to compare balances at lunch. Derek is 30, and he brags that he already has $100,000 saved. It sounds impressive until you remember he has 35 years for it to grow. Camille has less time, but a bigger base and a clearer plan. Different races entirely. Comparing their two balances tells you almost nothing useful about either of them. Age, income, timeline, and spending all change what a number actually means. Now, the number one thing people do wrong, they compare themselves to averages. Camille read online that the average saver her age has less than she does. So she relaxed. If she is above average, surely she must be doing just fine. But averages hide a trap. A few very wealthy savers drag the average way up. The median tells the truer story. The median is the person standing right in the middle. And the median retirement balance is far, far smaller than the average. In one large study, the average balance was about $168,000. But the median, the true middle, was only around $44,000. For savers in their late 40s and early 50s, the median hovered near $60,000. Read that again. The middle saver in Camille's age group has around $60,000. Camille has more than 4 times that. On the crowd scoreboard, she is winning easily. So Camille's $250,000 puts her well ahead of the typical 50-year-old saver. That sounds like great news, and in one sense it truly is. She is ahead of most. But here is the quiet trap. Ahead of most is not the same as having enough. Most people are behind, so beating most people is a dangerously low bar to clear. You would not call yourself a fast driver just for passing parked cars. Yet that is exactly what comparing to the average quietly invites you to do. Comparing yourself to a struggling crowd can quietly talk you out of saving more. The scoreboard that matters is not other people, it is your own future spending. There is a second opposite trap hiding right next to the first one. If comparing down makes you lazy, comparing up makes you needlessly miserable. Camille could just as easily find someone with $2 million and feel like a failure. But that person may earn 5 times her income and spend 3 times as much. Comparison in either direction is a thief. It steals either your urgency or your peace. So Camille is ahead of the crowd, but that alone does not answer her real question. So if averages mislead and the crowd is behind, what should Camille measure against? The answer is her own future. But to see it, we need to look forward, not sideways. Sideways comparison is anxiety, forward projection is a plan. Only one of them helps. So let us stop comparing Camille to strangers and start projecting her own money forward. Now for the most hopeful part of the whole story, and most people underestimate it. At 50, Camille has about 15 years until a typical retirement age of 65. 15 years is enough time for compounding to do something genuinely powerful. Say her $250,000 simply grows at about 7% a year with no new savings. No extra contributions at all, just the money she already has, quietly left to grow. Over 15 years, that money would roughly double, then a little more on top. $250,000 could become close to $700,000. $700,000 without adding a single additional dollar of new savings. Let that sink in. The saving is mostly done. Now time does the heavier lifting. The first $250,000 was the hard part. The growth is the reward. That is the quiet power of already having a real head start at 50. Most people at 50 feel they are hopelessly out of time. The math disagrees. 15 years is short for starting, but it is long enough for money to work hard. In fact, a large share of her final balance may come from growth, not new deposits. The money she saved in her 40s keeps working long after she stops adding to it. The dollars Camille already saved will quietly do more work than she expects. This is why the balance you already hold at 50 matters so much. It has time to grow. Run the numbers on your own balance. Multiply it by roughly 2.5. That rough figure is what today's money alone could become by 65. Of course, markets do not rise in a smooth, tidy line. Some years fall. But over 15 years, the long trend has historically pointed firmly upward. The danger is not the dips. The danger is panicking and selling during one. Camille's job is not to predict the market. It is simply to stay in her seat. Let us make the compounding concrete because a doubling can sound almost too good. At about 7%, money tends to double roughly every 10 years or so. Camille has 15 years, so her money gets one full doubling, plus a healthy head start on another. That is how $250,000 quietly becomes nearly $700,000 while she sleeps. No stock picking, no timing the market, just staying invested and being patient. The hardest part of compounding is not understanding it. It is leaving it alone. Now add the second engine, the new money Camille can still put in. Growth on old money is powerful. Fresh contributions pour fuel on that same fire. And at 50, the tax rules quietly hand you a bigger shovel to dig with. The standard yearly limit for a workplace plan is around $23,000. But once you turn 50, you can add a catch-up contribution on top of that. That catch-up is an extra $7,500 a year just for being 50 or older. And there is a new bonus. Between 60 and 63, that catch-up grows even larger. In those years, the catch-up can climb to over $11,000 annually. So the system is practically begging late savers to accelerate in the final stretch. Say Camille adds even $10,000 a year for these 15 years. Combined with her growing $250,000, she can push well past that $700,000. Suddenly, the woman who felt behind is staring at a genuinely comfortable future. The lesson. At 50, your savings rate matters even more than your current balance. A modest balance with a strong savings rate can overtake a big balance that just sits. Think about what that catch-up really represents. A second chance built into the rules. The system knows people fall behind, so it hands older savers a bigger bucket on purpose. Most people never use it. They leave that extra room completely empty every year. Camille decided she would not be most people. She would fill as much as she could. Even a partial catch-up done for 15 years quietly reshapes her entire retirement. This is the lever almost entirely inside your control, so pull it hard. Camille sat down with a financial advisor to sanity check these catch-up numbers. He showed her that maxing even part of the catch-up meaningfully moves her finish line. Small increases, automated and forgotten, add up to enormous sums over 15 years. The trick is to raise your savings the same week you get any raise at work. You never miss money that never touched your checking account in the first place. Now for the number that actually answers Camille's question, her real target. Forget generic benchmarks for a moment. Your true target is built from your spending. A common guideline says you can safely withdraw about 4% of your savings each year. Flip that around, and you get a simple, powerful rule for your target. Take the yearly income you want in retirement and multiply it by 25. That 25 is just the flip side of the 4% withdrawal guideline. It is a rough rule, not a guarantee. But as a target, it is remarkably clarifying. For the first time, Camille has a real finish line instead of a foggy fear. Say Camille wants $40,000 a year on top of her Social Security. 40,000 times 25 is a target of $1 million. That sounds huge next to her current $250,000. For a second, her heart sinks. But remember the two engines, growth on her balance plus 15 years of contributions. Her existing money grows towards $700,000 almost on its own. Her contributions can carry the rest of the way to that $1 million target. Suddenly, a target that felt impossible becomes a series of manageable yearly steps. That is the magic of turning one scary number into a path you can actually walk. The $1 million that terrified her is suddenly, realistically, within reach. And if she wants less, say $30,000 a year, her target drops to $750,000, which her existing money and modest saving could nearly cover on their own. And do not forget Social Security, which quietly covers a chunk of that spending for you. Every dollar Social Security provides is a dollar your savings no longer has to. So Camille's true target might be even lower than that scary $1 million figure. This is the real answer. Your target is set by your spending, not by a magazine headline. Notice how personal this target is. It has nothing to do with Derek or Nicole. Two people with identical savings can have completely different real targets. The frugal saver needs less. The big spender needs far more. Same balance, different verdicts. This is why a generic benchmark can never truly grade your specific life. Your spending writes your target, and your spending is something you can actually shape. So Camille has 3 real numbers now: her multiple, her growth, and her true target. But there is one more lever, and it is the most overlooked of them all. The single fastest way to hit your target is to lower the target itself. Every dollar you learn to live without is $25 you no longer need saved. Trimming $4,000 a year of spending cuts $100,000 off your target. That is the strange magic of the 25 rule working quietly in your favor. Nicole, on her higher salary, has a bigger lifestyle and a much bigger target. So Nicole is not doomed. She simply has more levers she needs to pull sooner. She can save more, spend a little less, or plan to work a couple of extra years. Each of those small levers moves her from behind toward right on track. Notice what none of these levers required: a stranger's opinion of her balance. Every lever that matters is personal. Your income, your saving, your spending, your timeline. Some levers are big, like income. Some are small, like a monthly subscription trim. You do not have to pull them all. You just have to pull a few, consistently. That is the whole machine. And you are the one standing at the controls. Now here's the twist that reframes the entire question. Before you dismiss it, hear this. Ahead, behind, or on track was never really the right question to begin with. Because ahead and behind are measured against other people. And other people are not your life. The number on your screen is a scoreboard for a game you are not actually playing. The real game is quieter. Can this money one day replace your paycheck? That is it. Not can it beat Nicole, not can it impress Derek. Can it quietly pay your bills forever? When that becomes the only question, half the noise in your head simply goes silent. And that question has almost nothing to do with whether you beat the person next to you. Here's what actually happens when people chase a benchmark instead of a plan. They either panic and make rash moves, or they relax and quietly stop trying. Both reactions are driven by a number that was never about them in the first place. Camille's $250,000 is not a grade. It is simply a starting position in her own race. And from that position, with time and contributions, her finish line is very reachable. The saddest outcome is not having $250,000 at 50, it is freezing there. Freezing because a headline said you were behind, so you gave up on the 15 years left. Or freezing because an average said you were fine, so you stopped pushing entirely. Here is the line worth remembering. Your balance is a starting point, not a scorecard. Notice that Camille never needed to become a different person to win this. She did not need a lottery win, a genius stock, or a secret nobody else knows. She just needed the right question, a little patience, and the years she already has. That is the quiet good news buried inside this entire question. $250,000 at 50 is not a verdict. It is a launch pad with fuel still to add. What decides your future is not the number tonight. It is what you do with the years left. Camille spent years quietly graded by a scoreboard that was never really hers. The night she stopped comparing was the night her real plan finally began. So stop asking if you are ahead of strangers. Start asking if you are on track for you. Think about what a benchmark really is. It is an average of people nothing like you. Different incomes, different cities, different dreams, all blended into one meaningless middle. Grading your life against that blur is like using someone else's shoe size. It might fit by accident. Usually it just pinches and tells you nothing true. Camille almost let a stranger's shoe size decide how she felt about her whole future. Instead, she measured her own foot. Her income, her spending, her timeline, her plan. That single shift in question is worth more than any headline you will ever read. So back to Camille, still awake, still holding her phone, still 50 years old. But now the $250,000 on her screen means something completely different. It is not a verdict anymore. It is a launch pad with 15 good years still ahead. The number did not change tonight. 250,000 is still 250,000. What changed is that she finally understands what the number can become. She knows her multiple. She knows her target. She knows the levers she controls. She will not solve it all tonight. She does not need to. She just needs a direction. Tomorrow she will raise her contribution by 1%. A small, almost painless move. Next year, another 1%, and the year after that, one more. Quietly, steadily. That is how being behind becomes on track. Not in one leap, but in small, honest steps. So here is your simple homework, whatever your own number happens to be tonight. First, divide your balance by your salary. That is your honest multiple. Second, multiply today's balance by about 2.5 for a rough future value. Third, multiply your desired yearly spending by 25. That is your real target. Write those 3 numbers on a sticky note and put it where you will see it. They will do more for your peace of mind than 100 scary headlines ever could. Because clarity, not comparison, is what finally quiets the 3 in the morning worry. 3 quick numbers, and suddenly ahead or behind becomes a question you can actually answer. And if the answer is behind, do not despair. Behind at 50 is still fully workable. If the answer is on track, do not coast. On track only stays true if you keep going. Every answer points to the same next move. Keep saving, stay invested, revisit yearly. Whatever the answer, you still have the most valuable asset of all, time and a choice. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's sales pitch. If this helped you finally see your own number clearly, subscribe to Robert Money Logic. Hit the notification bell so the next breakdown reaches you at exactly the right moment. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day. A $250,000 at 50 is not a trophy to guard or a shame to hide. It is simply where you stand today, with real years and real choices ahead. Camille finally sees that clearly, and now, hopefully, so do you. Because your number was never the whole story. What you do next always is. Robert would tell you the number tonight matters far less than the habit tomorrow. Ahead or behind is just a snapshot. On track is a direction you get to choose. So choose it tonight. Pick one lever, pull it this week, and let the years do the rest. 250,000 at 50 is not the end of the question. It is the start of the plan.